Welcome back, everyone. No matter where you are, no matter what time it may be, I hope y'all are doing well out there. Legends, out there in the dark, in the woods, long before most folks even think about unzipping a rifle case or climbing into a stand, something else is awake. The hunters in these encounters. Unfortunately, they found that out the hard way. Each one of these individuals walked into the woods thinking they knew how the world worked. They knew the wind. They could track animals, the patterns, the behaviors. They thought they understood what hunts and what gets hunted. But there was something out there hunting on their level, and in most cases, far above it. A predator, some would say. One that doesn't chase or stalk. It plans. It adapts. It understands the land the way men do, and uses it even better than them. I've done an upload on this before, and I've been waiting a long time to do this one. It's took me a few months to gather up these encounters, but finally, I've received enough of them to make a full upload. These are encounters that you can't prepare for. These are moments when the hunter becomes a witness to something else working the woods with purpose, patience, and intelligence no animal should possess. I want to thank y'all for listening, and if you've had an encounter of your own and would like to share it here on the channel, be sure and reach out to me. Send me an email. I'd love to hear from you. My email address will be linked in the description below the video. Legends, you're about to hear what happens when men out hunting get a front row seat to the real apex predator in the forest. And once you know it hunts, you'll never walk into the woods the same way again. Everyone lock in, and let's begin. Grab a drink, lock your doors and windows, hit the lights, and let's get started. Reels. I'm a 48-year-old deer hunter from northern Minnesota. I've been doing this since I was big enough to sit in a stand without falling out. I've spent more hours in the woods than I could ever count, and I always kind of thought I had a good read on what goes on out there. Most of us probably do. But after November of 2021, I don't say that anymore. I hunt a chunk of public land not far from Ely, way up north. It's swamp and pine and blowdowns. It's a place where a good buck can disappear 10 feet from you and you'll never see him. I've had good luck there over the years, mostly because I figured out a funnel where deer cross from the swamp into the hardwoods. You sit that spot during rifle season and eventually something moves through. It's a reliable spot, as reliable as it gets. I'll paint the picture. It was rifle season. I was in my stand well before sunrise. It was cold, but it wasn't miserable. Maybe 18 degrees. Snow on the ground, just enough crust on it that you hear everything coming from a mile away. There wasn't a breath of wind. About an hour after first light, I started hearing deer moving in the swamp behind me. They were moving pretty steady, not running, thankfully. And that honestly didn't make sense because deer around there don't head into the open hardwoods unless something bumped them up or spooked them. I got my rifle ready and looked down the trail. Then I heard something else. Something behind the deer, something large. It wasn't crashing through the brush like a bear, it was more like it was pacing the deer, or herding them. That's the best word for it. It wasn't trying to catch them, it was just pushing them in the direction it wanted them to go. It was driving them. My first thought was it had to be wolves, but wolves move light. These steps were heavy enough to vibrate through the metal of my tree stand. The deer came through in a tight little group. 2 does, a smaller buck behind them. They were funneling like they always do, but they were nervous in a way I wasn't expecting. Their heads kept turning the wrong direction, like whatever was behind them wasn't close, but they knew it was there. I brought my scope up and tried to spot what was pushing them, but all I saw were shadows. Then I heard something off to my left in the hardwoods. A branch snapped. A deliberate one. This wasn't a deer. Definitely not a squirrel. Something stepped out just inside the tree line, maybe 60, 70 yards from me. And I froze, because it wasn't a deer or a wolf or a bear. It was standing on two legs. I didn't get a direct, straight shot, clear look at its face because it was angled away from me watching the deer. But the shape of it, the size of it, I damn near dropped my rifle. This thing was huge. Its shoulders were as wide as a big man, but a lot thicker. Like it had more muscle than anything that should exist in this woods especially. Fur completely covering all over it. It had long arms that I can't even describe. The head, it was definitely canine, no doubt. It was shaped just like a dog or a wolf. It was also more narrow and a lot bigger, of course, and set on top of the shoulders like a linebacker. This thing didn't even have a neck. It was panting like it had been chasing the deer, which makes sense, I suppose. It was standing there perfectly still at that point, like it was waiting for its opportunity. That's when it hit me. There were two more of these things. The one behind the deer was pushing them forward, and this one was waiting in the funnel, exactly where a smart hunter would put himself. I'm telling you right now, that thing wasn't guessing. It knew the terrain. It knew the deer were coming to it. It had positioned itself for the kill, like it had done this 100 times before. My breathing just went to hell. I couldn't even steady my gun. I wasn't going to shoot it anyway because I didn't know if my .30-06 would even matter to something this big. I didn't know what the hell I was even looking at. The deer came through right where they always do. The first doe passed the spot where that thing was standing, and the second she cleared by maybe 10 feet. The creature moved. It wasn't really fast like sprinting. It was fast like dropping the clutch on a car. 1 second it was still. The next it crossed that distance between it and the deer in one jump. It hit the smaller buck from the side and everything went silent. Not even a bleat. Nothing. It was dead before it even hit the ground. The other deer blew out of there so fast they didn't even make noise, just vanished. The creature bent over that buck, grabbed it by the neck and lifted it off the ground like it weighed nothing. And then this is the part that makes me sick. It looked toward the woods behind the deer like it was signaling the other one. I didn't hear the second one. I didn't see it. But I knew it was there. I could feel it. The first one dragged the buck into the trees like it was nothing more than a bag of leaves, and the woods stayed dead quiet. I sat there for almost an hour without moving. I was scared to even breathe. Finally, I climbed down and got the hell out of there. I walked backwards most of the way because I didn't want to turn my back on anything, especially after what I'd just seen. I haven't been back to that spot. I won't go back there. I didn't tell a single person except my brother, and even he looked at me like I'd lost it. I don't know if I can ever hunt again, to be honest, but I do know this. These Dogman creatures, those deer, they weren't just being chased, they were being run through a plan, a coordinated plan, a strategy, if you will. Now, what's stopping these things from using this intelligence and this strategy on us? That wasn't an animal chasing something for food. That was an apex, intelligent predator using teamwork, terrain, and timing better than any human hunter I've ever met. I will never, as long as I live, forget the way that thing moved. J. G. Ely, Minnesota. Hey, brother. You or anyone else can believe this or not. Really doesn't make a big difference to me. I'm only sending this because my cousin keeps telling me I should get it off my chest, whatever that means. He listens to your channel every night while he works on cars, so if you're reading this, blame him. I do a lot of hog hunting down here in East Texas. Not for fun, more like necessity. They tear up land like nothing else, and the landowner likes when people thin them out a bit. Me and my cousin run thermals because that's the only real way to hunt hogs at night without sitting there blind. Anyway, this happened last summer. It was hot as hell, humid enough that my shirt stayed glued to me the entire time. We'd been watching a group of hogs hitting this spot near a dried-out creek bed. The landowner had thrown corn down for a few days to keep them coming in. Pretty normal stuff, really. We got set up around 10 p.m. There was no moon to speak of. The thermals lit up everything like a video game. We were on opposite sides of a little opening, maybe 40 yards apart, whispering back and forth about which one we wanted to take. At first, everything was exactly like it always is. Hogs rooting, a few small boars pushing each other, one big sow that kept checking the wind. Typical hog behavior. Then something changed. Something that I didn't know was coming. I couldn't have ever imagined this was coming. The hogs all lifted their heads at the exact same time, not a second apart. I mean, the same second, like somebody hit a switch. They weren't looking at us. They weren't looking downwind. They were looking at this dark tree line behind them, and the way they were staring. It wasn't, we smell something. It was, we know something awful is in there. My cousin whispered, "You see anything?" I didn't. I just saw black and trees. No heat signatures, no movement. Then the thermal finally picked something up way off on the right side. One big heat blob, moving slowly, real slowly. It wasn't sneaking, it was just moving around like it was waiting. But there's something, this part, I can't get out of my head. It moved in a circle, a perfect one. It wasn't weaving, not nosing the ground like a hog. It was not pacing like a coyote. It was a slow, wide, intentional circle around these hogs, always staying just outside of their line of sight. I knew at that moment whatever this was very smart, and it knew very well what it was doing. This was something skilled in hunting. But, come to find out, it was even smarter than I thought. This thing circled again and got behind them. I could see it clear now, and I swear to God it was big. Like, big. The kind of heat signature you only see with cattle, or a full-grown black bear, maybe. Only this wasn't shaped like either of those. It had a long torso. It was tall, upright when it paused, huge upper body. Then it dropped down low, almost crawling. The heat signature showed long arms, long legs, longer than anything I've seen move on four limbs. My cousin whispered, "Buddy, that's not a hog. That ain't anything." We watched it move from one side to the other without making a single sound. Not even a grunt or a breath. This thing was hurting these hogs. That's the only word I've got for it, because that's what it was doing. Every time the hogs shifted, it shifted to cut them off. It kept them inside this little circle like it was pushing cattle. The hogs were panicking, understandably, but not running. Every time one tried to break, that thing would appear on that side and block the escape. Then, it came in fast. And no, I've heard other people say they run like a man. This wasn't like that. One instant it was 20 yards from the hogs, and the next it was right there on top of them. It was a blur. My thermal could barely keep up. It hit a medium-sized boar first. Not the biggest one, not the smallest. It knew which one was easiest to separate. It dragged it down like it just weighed 5 or 10 pounds. The rest of the hogs exploded out in every direction. I mean full sprint, crashing through the woods so loud that it echoed. My cousin started cussing under his breath, and I told him to shut up because whatever that thing was, it wasn't focused on us. We watched it finish the boar in 2 seconds flat. Then, it stood up on 2 legs, full height, shoulders hunched, head shaped like a wolf, ears up like a damn dog. It sniffed the air, just checking. Then it walked backward into the trees with the boar over its shoulder, just calm as a cucumber, like it had been doing this its entire life, like this was completely normal. Nothing about this was normal. Me and my cousin sat there another 30 minutes trying to figure out if we should walk or crawl out of there. We chose walking, but we walked slow and kept looking over our shoulders and kept the thermals on the whole time. Now, I've been hunting these woods since I was a kid. I know hogs, I know coyotes, I know the occasional black bear. Nothing out here circles prey like that. Nothing out here pushes animals like it knows the bigger picture of how to corner them. People say hogs are smart, and they are. But whatever that thing was, it was hunting smart. And I know how crazy this sounds, but when I got home I realized something else. It had to know we were there. It didn't care about us at all, not even a little. We were just 2 idiots watching something we weren't supposed to see. That's all I have. Believe it or don't. C.W., Jasper County. Hello. I'm 56 years old, and I've spent half my life in the mountains around western Montana. I'm not, and make no mistake, I want you to understand, I'm not the type to lose sleep over something I can't explain. I've seen my share of weird things in the woods, and I don't usually pay any mind to it. I'm writing this to you because what I saw was wrong, and I'm old enough to know the difference between something strange and something that's impossible. This was closer to the latter. This happened in 2019. I was hunting a drainage above the Bitterroot Valley, a place I've taken elk from over the years. It's very steep country, deadfall everywhere, little pockets of lodgepole, then wide open bowls where the elk like to feed in the evenings. It's hard walking, but that's why I hunt it. It keeps 90% of people out. A lot of people are lazy and don't like to work for their hunt. Right around 4 p.m., I spotted a herd way down in a bowl. Maybe 40, 50 elk. Cows, calves, one decent bull pushing them around. They were acting normal at first. Grazing, switching sides, looking around. What you would expect. Then the whole herd shifted like something spooked them. I knew it wasn't me. They didn't run, they just bunched up tighter, and several cows kept staring at the same line of trees on the far side of the bowl. You spend enough time glassing elk, you start picking up on the subtle stuff. They weren't alarmed, but they were uncomfortable. I scanned the trees. I didn't see anything obvious. I didn't see a wolf, a cat. I didn't see another hunter. There was nothing there that I could see. About 5 minutes passed, and I finally saw some movement. It was something big, and it was something low. It looked like a wolf, but was too big to be a wolf, and it was too low to the ground to be a bear. It was moving through the deadfall like it had rehearsed the route. It didn't fight the timber, it weaved through it like a needle with thread. I don't know how else I could say that, but just picture it in your mind and you may understand. Every time the elk looked away, this thing moved. When their heads came back up, it froze. Like it understood how vision works. I thought I was watching a mountain lion at first, but lions don't move the way this thing did. And it was too big, too long at the torso. The head was that of a dog. I could see it perfectly. The ears were higher, its muzzle was longer. Its arms and legs were extremely long and extremely skinny. It didn't look physically possible. This looked like something out of a movie. It got worse because I watched it stand up. It was standing just enough to look over the deadfall. A very quick rise, maybe a second or two. It was standing on two legs. I saw it. Very tall, very lean. Dog-shaped head, as I said before. It had shoulders like a man who spends his life swinging an axe. It was the awareness that got me. This thing checked the wind. It checked all the exits. It checked the spacing of the elk. It was calculating the same way I would if I were planning to stalk on a herd. Only it was doing better than I would. It slipped back down low and moved left, cutting off the drainage that the elk would naturally run through if they took off. It wasn't hurting them, it was not rushing them, it was shaping the situation, controlling the geometry of the bowl. The bull kept bulging half-heartedly, but even he looked bothered, like he knew something big was off. The creature waited until the elk shifted again, then it made its move. It closed 50 yards, like smoke. I heard nothing. This was silent, smooth. If I hadn't been watching through glass, I would have missed it. It targeted a cow at the back of the herd, the slowest one, the one lagging behind the rest. Now you know predators do that, yeah, but this was not opportunistic. It looked intentional, like it had reviewed the entire herd and picked the one with the lowest chance of escaping. That was intelligence. The attack happened so fast I had to replay it in my mind afterward just to convince myself that I actually saw it. That poor elk didn't even have time to even think about moving before that thing was on her. It came from behind and slightly above, using the slope to its advantage. I heard one short cry and then it went quiet. The rest of the herd were gone, dust and snow flying everywhere. The bull was the first one out. Typical. Down on the ground, I could see just enough to know the cow was dead almost instantly. The creature didn't thrash about. It didn't even fight. It locked onto her neck, and that was it. Then something else happened. It looked up, directly toward the ridge I was on. It didn't hear me, there's no way. It just knew I was there. It was checking the area to make sure nothing else was around to challenge it. And for one brief second, its head turned in my direction. I didn't even blink. I held my breath. I did not dare move. It didn't react. It didn't seem threatened. It just settled back down and started dragging the cow toward the thicker timber, one-handed. I stayed until dark because leaving the ridge meant passing closer to where it had gone, and I wasn't about to test my luck. When I finally made my way out, I carried my rifle low and kept looking behind me every 30 steps or so. I've hunted alone most of my life, but that was the first time I ever caught myself wishing someone else was there with me. I've never been that scared in my life, and that's hard for me to admit. I don't pretend to know what dogmen are, but I know I saw one, and I know how they hunt. They hunt with patience. They hunt with purpose. They hunt with a high range of intelligence and strategy. It hunted with more intelligence than anything that should be walking in these mountains. I've seen wolves hunt smart. I've seen all kinds of predators do their thing. But whatever this was, it was thinking in a whole different level. And that's the part that keeps me quiet about it. I don't really know what else to say. Take this as a warning if you're a hunter. I don't think there's anything you can carry that will protect you from this thing. If you see one, all you can do is pray that it's not hungry or it doesn't want you. Thanks. Anonymous. Ravalli County. Reels. I know you're a pretty busy guy, or I imagine you are. So I'll try not to make this long. I won't waste your time. I'm 24 now, but this took place 2 seasons back in the low country of South Carolina, down in one of those swampy stretches where the ground squishes under your boots and you can smell the black mud from a mile away. Now my granddad has a little piece of property that butts up against a bigger swamp. It's been in the family forever. It's just woods, mud, and deer trails that never change. He taught me everything about hunting when I was a kid, so every late season I go out there and sit a trail that crosses a shallow creek. Bucks love using it right before dark. Anyway, this was in December. It was cold, but not comparable to real cold like up north. We don't get cold like that. The sun was dropping and everything had that glow in the trees. If you're a hunter, you know what I mean. That time right before the woods switches personalities. I was sitting about 10 yards off the creek crossing. There's a big old cypress stump there that I lean against. It's great cover, and you can hear deer splashing before they show up. Around 4:30, I heard something running way off. Hooves. I figured it was that tall 8-point I'd seen twice but never got a shot at. I eased my rifle up and got ready. When the buck came into view, it wasn't running like a deer normally runs when it's spooked. This thing was bounding. It wasn't blowing, it was dodging, like it was trying to outthink something behind it. It got to the creek and hesitated for a moment. That buck never hesitates there. I've watched deer cross that spot since I was old enough to hold a flashlight. They splash, they go, and that's it. But this one stopped dead and lifted its head high, sniffing toward the water like the danger wasn't behind it, but in front of it. That's when my guts locked up. Something was in the creek. It wasn't moving. It was just there. I didn't see it at first. The water was dark. There was shadows everywhere. But the buck took one step toward the bank, then backed up like it got hit with a smell I couldn't process. Then I watched the water shift. It wasn't ripples from a current. It shifted from weight like something heavy had been standing completely still under the surface. I felt my heart crawl up into my throat. That buck stared right at the water. Tail twitching, ears flicking, muscles coiling up tight. I swear on my life it turned and tried to run back the way it came, which deer almost never do when something's chasing them. It didn't matter. Something rose up from that creek like it had been part of the mud. I only saw it for a second before the trees swallowed everything. But that second is burned into my brain and will be for the rest of my life. It wasn't standing on the bank. It was standing in the water, waist deep, shoulders hunched. Its head was shaped like a wolf, but longer in the snout. Rougher hair around the neck like a mane that got dragged through swamp filth. The eyes, they were too bright. It wasn't normal reflection. These things were amber and they seemed to be glowing like flashlights. Before the buck could even move its body to run, the thing moved. It was so fast there's no way it was completely unavoidable. It lunged up the bank in 2 strides and hit the buck from the side. They crashed into the mud hard enough that I felt the vibration through the stump I was leaning on. Leaves went everywhere. Mud splattered. The sound of that buck, the sound it made, didn't even sound like a deer. It was more like breath being knocked out of something that knew it wasn't getting another. Everything after that happened in silence, like dead silence. It didn't thrash or roar or shake its kill. It pinned the buck down with one arm, grabbed the back of its neck, and gave a good twist. A clean, brutal twist. No struggle, no drawn-out fight. I heard a sickening crack, and that was it. I looked toward the creek and saw that it looked toward the creek. It didn't look toward me, it looked toward the water, like it was checking for something, like the water was part of the plan. I realized then it had been standing in that creek not to hide, but to kill its scent, or at least that's what I think. I think it was doing that to erase itself, to wait at the one place the deer had to pass. That wasn't instinct. That was a level of intelligence that most animals don't possess. Hell, for that matter, most humans don't possess. The Dogman creature stepped backward, dragging the buck by its neck, half limp and half floating. Every step it took was slow and controlled, like it wasn't in a hurry and it wasn't struggling to carry this animal. It disappeared into the deeper part of the swamp, dragging that buck like a wet rag. I didn't dare try to move at that point. I didn't even breathe right for a good 30 minutes. I thought I was going to have a heart attack. I only left when the light was almost gone, and even then, I was like a scared little kid. I told my granddad what happened, and he just stared at the floor for a very long time. Then he told me, everything in that swamp hunts, boy. Some things just don't want to be seen doing it. You're very lucky. Be careful. That line has stuck with me ever since. T.H. Reels. I'm not a dramatic type. I don't tell stories. So I'm just going to give this to you the way it happened. I imagine that's how you want it, right? I hunt predators out in western Oklahoma pretty regular. Been doing it since my 20s, and I'm now 39. Where I live, coyotes aren't some mystical creature. They're pests. They dig through feed yards, they take livestock, and they come right up to the houses sometimes, which is highly dangerous, especially if you have small children. You run a collar, you shoot a couple, you sell the pelts or just bury them, whatever you choose to do. This happened 2 years ago in January. There was a cold front that came through. The sky was clear enough that every star looked like it was right on top of you. The wind was almost nothing, which is perfect for what I was trying to do. I set up on the edge of a wheat field. Real open country out here. Scattered brush, a few pockets of mesquite, slight rises and dips in the land. I had my Fox Pro collar staked about 30 yards out with a little decoy feather moving around in the breeze. Now normally you get a coyote coming in within 10 minutes of the collar starting. They circle downwind, they stop and look. Then you take your shot. It's all very predictable, and I've done it hundreds of times. But this night felt different from the second I got out of the truck, and it was different in a way that I couldn't explain at the time. So I ignored it. Big mistake. I'll try to explain the feeling so if you do read this, someone listening might understand if they feel this. You know how sometimes the air feels too empty, like too open? It was one of those nights even the cattle on the next property were bunched up by the barn instead of grazing. I put out the collar anyway and started with a soft rabbit in distress sound. Just something to get attention. 5 minutes go by, nothing. 8 to 10 minutes pass, nothing. Then all at once every single thing in that field went silent. Even the slight movement of the grass seemed to stop. I lowered the volume on the collar and listened. I heard footsteps, and they were behind me. They were steady, too spaced out to be a deer, and way too heavy to be a coyote, too slow to be cattle. I turned in my seat just a little, trying not to silhouette myself. I didn't see a thing, but the feeling hit me like a hammer. Whatever was out there wasn't coming for the rabbit sound. It was hunting the collar itself. Predators do that, sure, but not the way this thing was doing it. Coyotes come in cautious. Bobcats will come in low and slow. A lion, if we had any, would come in silent. This was different. It circled me. Not wide, not fast. Just circled. My thermal wasn't picking it up for some reason. Either it was staying behind rises in the ground or it was low enough that the brush was hiding it. The second sound, it came and it just kept moving. It seemed to be off to my right. Then it would be behind me again. Then it would be way off to the left. I don't know how it moved so quickly without me seeing or hearing it. I turned the collar completely off just to see what would happen. Deathly silent. Then I heard the exact same sound come back across the field, but not from my collar. Something was mimicking it. Not perfect, but close enough. A long, broken rabbit scream that sounded wrong, like the pitch was too deep or the breath behind it was too strong. Every muscle in my body tensed up. I raised my rifle up slow, and I finally caught sight of it. The far side of the field, crossing from one brush patch to the next. This tall, upright for a second figure. Then it went back low, and then upright again. It was testing the distance. It was testing me. Testing the collar. Predators do not analyze situations like that. They react. They see. They smell. They move. This thing was using the land to its advantage. It was using the shadows, even. Using the silence between my breaths. I don't even know how to describe this. To make you understand how insane this was. I watched it stop behind a mesquite cluster maybe 70 yards out. But just a shape at first. Very broad, very tall. It had arms that were just too long. Its head was angled downward toward the collar like it was studying it. I don't think it was fooled at all. I think it was deciding at that moment. Then it started moving in again, but not toward the rabbit sound. It was moving toward me. Directly in my direction. Like it had realized the collar wasn't the source of the real life in the field. Every instinct in me had told me not to shoot. Not because I didn't want to, because I wasn't sure a shot would matter. And if I didn't put it down with a shot, I knew damn well it would close that distance faster than I could cycle another round. It got within probably 40 yards, which is way too close. Close enough that I could see the outline through the brush. Its head was shaped wrong. Its legs were bent wrong. The shoulders were hunched forward like something about to drop to all fours. The eyes are what really messed me up. They reflected the light back in a way I've never seen. This wasn't like a normal predator. It was way more intense than that. More focused. Like it was waiting for me to make the first mistake. Then it made a sound, barely above a whisper. I realized it wasn't a growl, it was sniffing. It was tasting the air, working the wind like a professional. It wasn't here for the caller. It was here for the thing the caller would bring in. Me. I never saw it show its teeth. I never heard it growl. It just turned, crouched down, and melted back into the brush like a shadow that moved between darker shadows. I sat there for a few minutes, holding my rifle up, waiting for, I don't really know, something, anything. But nothing came. When I finally worked up the nerve to stand, my legs were shaking so bad I couldn't trust my first step. I walked out of that field. I made it. I left the collar still on the ground, the decoy still spinning. I didn't go back for him. I won't go back for him. I've been calling predators for almost 20 years. I've seen dangerous animals. I've been charged by hogs. I've been stalked by coyotes. None of that feels like this felt. I cannot describe to you in words the feeling I had of dread, the very thought that this was my last moment on earth. It's something that has to be experienced firsthand, and I pray that no one understands what I mean. Anyone can take this however they want. You can come to terms with it, you can deny it, you can call me a liar if that makes you feel better. But if you take nothing else, please understand. I'm not lying to you. I told you exactly what happened, what I saw, how it behaved, and this is not a joke. If you go out there, if you're hunting, hiking, whatever you're doing, close to or inside the wilderness, you better carry some sort of protection, no matter what it may be. And no, I don't mean a knife or a machete. At least have a can of bear spray. At least. Thanks, Reels. D.R. Custer County. Reels. I really hope you're going to believe me, 'cause most people don't. I've run through every possibility in my head for over a year now, and nothing seems to fit. I can't explain any of it. This happened east of Roswell, out in the country where the land is so open you can watch your dog run away for 3 days. Flat prairie, shallow draws, short grass, nothing to hide behind except low ridges, and that's about it. I hunt pronghorn out there. I have for years. It's not like elk or deer hunting. Pronghorn see everything. The only way to beat them is to know the terrain better than they do, and move slow enough that they don't get your silhouette. This was October 2023. It was clear out that day, high visibility. Perfect day for glassing. I'd climbed up on a low ridge overlooking a basin. Took me maybe 40 minutes to crawl up there without being seen. But once I was set, I had a perfect field of view. I spotted a herd, feeding about a half a mile out. A dozen does, 3 young bucks. Nothing big enough to shoot, but I was enjoying watching them. Watching pronghorn through a spotting scope is honestly one of the most peaceful things in the world. They were relaxed, flicking their tails, moving, shifting positions, completely unaware of anything. Then, around the 10-minute mark, they all looked up at the same time. Not toward me, not toward the wind, toward a dry area that cut through the basin. I scanned it with my binos, nothing. Checked with the scope, still nothing. But I knew, I could feel it deep down, something was off. The dust down there wasn't moving the way dust normally moves. There was a disturbance, and it wasn't the wind. It was more like something heavy, moving its weight, slow enough that the dust didn't rise in a cloud, it just kind of rolled. I kept glassing that spot, and unfortunately I finally saw what I was looking for. A shape, moving with a rhythm that doesn't match any animal that I know. It was very low to the ground. It wasn't a light trot either. Not the rolling stride of a dog or a hog. Not the shoulder-heavy movement of a big cat. This thing was staying below the lip of the area, only exposing part of its back now and then when it passed lower cuts. At first I thought maybe this could be a person crawling, but people don't cover that much distance that fast and that smoothly. They don't move with that kind of flow. It was unnatural. They don't synchronize every movement with the exact moment their prey lowers its head to feed. But that's exactly what this thing did. Every time the pronghorn dipped their heads, it slid forward a few feet. When they lifted, it stopped, perfectly timed. That was the moment the hair on my arms began to stand up. It wasn't timing them, it was studying them and their movements. The pronghorn moved again, just a small, natural repositioning. That thing adjusted its route instantly, as if it had been waiting, anticipating for that exact angle to open up. It stalked like something that had spent its whole life learning exactly how far pronghorn can see and exactly how much movement their eyes are able to catch. I finally caught a clearer glimpse as it passed a deeper cut. I saw long, dark fur, not thick like a bear, more sleek, like an animal that's built for speed. Its shoulders were forwardly sloped. The back legs were bent the wrong way, like something that could drop into a sprint faster than physics should allow. The head, I'm sure that's what everyone, including you, is probably wondering. It was out of place for me. It was definitely that of a wolf or a Doberman pinscher. That's the best comparison I have. So if that tells you what it was, then so be it. Call it what you want. It lifted its head once, just a quick rise checking the herd spacing. I saw that long snout, and I saw those pointed ears. Even at that distance through a scope on high magnification, I could tell the eyes were too far forward to belong to a normal canine. Predators have forward-facing eyes. This thing's were forward, more like a person's placement, but deeper set. Then the entire basin shifted. The pronghorn started to move, just drifting toward a spot in the basin where the ground dipped down slightly. It wasn't a good escape route. It wasn't a place they would normally go. It was somewhere a human hunter would want them to move if he was trying to corner one. And it dawned on me right then. That thing knew where they'd go next. It was shaping the herd without even getting close. The second the pronghorn were lined up wrong, one trailing behind maybe 6 or 7 yards. The creature made its move. Now, it didn't move like a lion. It didn't leap like a wolf. It shot out of there like a bullet fired from the earth itself. One moment it was hidden. The next it was in the open, covering 40 yards in seconds. The pronghorn didn't even have time to even react at all. The one in the back lifted its head, confused, just as the creature hit it, at an angle so clean it looked choreographed. I saw dust explode, the rest of the herd took off in every direction, and the creature didn't spare them a glance. It finished the kill quickly, too quickly for me to see how it happened. It just dragged the pronghorn back towards where it came from, like it was just carrying a duffel bag. It wasn't even panting. It wasn't looking around for other threats. It knew it was the king of that situation. It was just done. Now I sit up on that ridge until dark, not because I was afraid to move, because in my mind, for some odd reason, I wanted to see it again. I wanted to see it again to prove that what I just witnessed was actually real. Whatever that was, It was moving down in those cuts like a person would move. I've hunted my whole life. I've seen every predator you can think of and how they stalk, how they ambush, how they chase. Nothing I've ever seen planned their movements the way that thing did. This thing was not reacting to the herd. It was directing them the way that it wanted them to go. I'll tell you something else before I end this. It didn't look surprised that the hunt worked out. It looked like it happened exactly as it expected it to, like it always does. I hope this helps someone, or shines some light on a question someone may have. As far as are they physical or are they spiritual? I don't know about you, Reels, but this answers the question for me. Ghosts and spirits and demons have no need to hunt for food. J. L. Chavez County. Hey, Reels. My encounter eats at me every time I look at my dogs, or when I walk past the timberline behind our camp. I've hunted black bear in north central Pennsylvania since I was a teenager. I'm 33 these days. I've run hounds with my dad, my uncles, and just about every local in this county who still believes in old-school hunting. Just so this makes sense, this happened during the legal firearms bear season, in a WMU where running hounds is permitted. We weren't baiting, weren't doing anything sketchy, just hunting the same way we've hunted for years. If you've ever hunted bear with dogs, then you know the drill. Dogs strike a track, start barking, collars light up on the handheld, and the whole group moves to cut the bear off or meet the dogs at the tree. That morning started normal. Cold, frost on everything. The kind of morning where sound travels too far and your breath comes out in puffs of smoke. We had 5 dogs out, all legal, all experienced, tough, reliable bear dogs. They've run dozens of bear without hesitation. They don't back down from anything, except whatever this was. Around 9 in the morning, the collars lit up. The dogs all at once acted like they struck a track. But the barking didn't sound right. They didn't sound excited, not aggressive, more like confused whining mixed with warning growls. My buddy Mark said that's not a bear track, not the way they're acting. The dogs kept pushing deeper into the woods, circling one tight spot over and over like they didn't want to commit. Finally, 2 of them broke off and started baying, which normally means they've got a bear held in thick cover and are waiting on us to close the distance. We expected to hear the usual, dogs fighting to hold a bear in place until we got there. Instead, the baying stopped. Dead silence. Then the GPS showed both dogs running back toward us, full retreat. That's the first time in my life I've ever saw bear dogs run away from the very thing they're cornering. We figured it was maybe a big boar, and the dogs just got bluffed. It happens sometimes, though not often. But when we got to the place where they'd bayed, everything about it was wrong. First thing we saw was a deer, or what was left of one. Not a bear kill, more like something ripped it apart and didn't care what pieces went where. The rest was dragged into brush, not bait, not corn, not feed, just a natural kill site, and a violent one at that. And before either of us could make any sense of that, something roared in the timber ahead of us. This wasn't a bear roar, not even close. This was a lot deeper, more anger than warning. We both froze up. We heard footsteps, pounding the ground hard enough that the leaves were shaking. Something massive was running through the timber, and it wasn't running away. It was chasing something. Right then, Not far away, up ahead, a huge black bear burst out from behind a rock, sprinting like it was being chased. And behind it, brother, I still see it clear as day now that I'm sitting here typing this. That thing chasing it wasn't losing ground. It was gaining, and gaining quickly, running like the woods didn't even exist around it. The bear was terrified, you could see it. Imagine that for a second. Let's stop. A fully grown Pennsylvania black bear, maybe 300 plus pounds, running for its life. Then this Dogman thing hit it. It wasn't a tackle, not a struggle. This was just a impact, like a train wreck. 1 second the bear was running. The next second its whole body was sideways, smashed onto the ground. We felt the ground vibrate under our boots, it hit so hard. That creature was on it instantly. It pinned the bear with both hands, grabbed the back of its skull, and twisted in one violent motion. A wet, hollow crack. Instant kill, lights out. A full-size black bear ended in a split second. Imagine that. Think on it for a second. It turned its head toward us after that, which made my stomach cave in on itself. It didn't turn its body, it only turned its head, very slowly too, as if it did it for dramatic effect. It knew we were standing there the whole damn time. It wanted us to see that. It didn't come after us. It didn't posture up. I never heard it growl or anything. It simply stepped off the bear, grabbed it by a hind leg, and dragged it back toward the timber like it had earned its meal and had no intentions of sharing, which was fine with me. The dogs, the same dogs that will charge a wounded bear without hesitation, were hiding behind us, tails tucked, shaking like they just wanted to leave. I've never seen them do that, ever. We backed out of there, rifles shaking in our hands. Didn't fire a shot. Not at the bear, not at the creature. We weren't about to risk it during legal season with dogs in the area, and honestly, I don't think a shot would have mattered anyway. Back at the trucks, no one talked for a long time. All Mark finally said was, "Whatever that was, we are not the apex out here. I need to think on this for a while." Now, I haven't run dogs out there since, and I'm not sure I will ever go again. S.M., Clinton County, Pennsylvania. Friends, legends, family. If you happen to make it this far, then you understand why these men don't talk about what they saw unless they absolutely have to. It changes you. It shakes something loose in your mind that doesn't ever go back into place. Most hunters, myself included, go into the woods thinking they're at the top of the chain. Gun in hand, decades of experience behind them, and a confidence that comes from knowing every trail, every sound, every shadow that moves. But every one of these men learned the same truth. You're not alone out there, and you're not the most capable thing moving through those trees. What they witnessed wasn't random. It wasn't instinct, it was intelligence. Something hunting with patience, precision, and purpose. Like it's born to do this, and done it long before any of us ever picked up a gun. So the next time you're out there before sunrise, the next time the woods go quiet and the hairs on your arms start standing on their own, remember what you heard here tonight. It could save your life. Some predators won't warn you. They don't circle, they don't give you a warning growl. They'll just watch you. They'll make a plan. And if you're lucky, they won't be hunting you. Thanks for being here with me tonight. And a huge thank you to the people who trusted me with their encounters. To everyone listening, and to the channel members, who all keep this thing going, I truly appreciate you more than you know. Everyone please stay safe out there. Stay sharp. I love each and every one of you. Until next time, my friends, watch over your loved ones. Keep your head on a swivel. And as always, good night.